They told her she was worthless. They told her she didn't belong. But they didn't know that the rusted, tarnished necklace hanging around her neck was the key to a billion-dollar secret. One spilled glass of wine cost Elodie her livelihood, leaving her trembling in the center of the city's most exclusive restaurant while the manager screamed in her face. But as she turned to leave, humiliated and broken, a hush fell over the room. A man who hadn't spoken a word in years, Sebastian Drake, the ruthless billionaire CEO of Drake Industries, suddenly shattered his glass. He wasn't looking at Elodie's tears. He was staring at the locket resting against her collarbone. A locket that was supposed to be buried in a grave 20 years ago. The scent of truffle oil and expensive perfume was suffocating. For Elodie Torres, the air inside l'Orangerie didn't smell like luxury. It smelled like anxiety. It was a Tuesday night in downtown Chicago, rain hammering against the floor-to-ceiling windows, blurring the city lights into streaks of gold and neon. Inside, the atmosphere was hushed and tense. This was where the city's elite came to broker deals and shatter lives, and Elodie was just trying to survive the shift without tripping over her own exhausted feet. "Table 4 needs water. Now, Torres, move it," hissed Mr. Henderson, the floor manager. Henderson was a man who sweated profusely, despite the aggressive air conditioning, his suit always a size too tight, his temper always on a hair trigger. "Yes, Mr. Henderson." "Right away," Elodie whispered, tucking a stray lock of dark hair behind her ear. She grabbed the crystal pitcher, her knuckles white. She had been working double shifts for 3 weeks straight. Her rent was overdue, and her younger brother, Leo, needed a specialist for his lungs that their non-existent insurance wouldn't cover. Every step Elodie took felt like walking on knives. Her shoes were worn through at the soles, but she had polished the tops until they shone, desperate to hide her poverty in a room full of billionaires. She approached table 4. It was occupied by a young couple who looked like they owned the block. The woman, Lydia Banks, was a minor socialite, known more for her temper tantrums on social media than any actual talent. She was currently picking at a lobster dish that cost more than Elodie made in a month. "Excuse me, ma'am," Elodie said softly, reaching out to refill the water glass. Lydia didn't even look up from her phone. "Make sure it's ice cold. I hate lukewarm water. It tastes like poverty." Elodie bit her tongue, pouring carefully. "Of course." As Elodie pulled the pitcher back, Lydia threw her hand up in a dramatic gesture, laughing loudly at something on her screen. Her elbow connected hard with Elodie's wrist. The pitcher flew. It seemed to happen in slow motion. The heavy crystal struck the edge of the table, shattering instantly. Ice water and shards of glass exploded over Lydia's sequined dress and the pristine white tablecloth. The silence that followed was deafening. The gentle hum of conversation in the restaurant died instantly. Every head turned. Lydia stood up, her screech piercing the air like a siren. "You idiot! You clumsy, stupid idiot! Do you know how much this dress costs?" Elodie dropped to her knees instinctively, grabbing napkins, her hands shaking so hard she could barely hold them. "I'm so sorry, ma'am. I'm so sorry. I'll clean it up. Please, it was an accident." "Don't touch me." Lydia kicked a shard of glass toward Elodie. "Get away from me. You've ruined everything." Mr. Henderson was there in seconds, his face purple with rage. He grabbed Elodie by the arm, hauling her up from the floor with unnecessary force. "What have you done?" Henderson snarled, his spit landing on her cheek. "This is a 5-star establishment, Torres. We do not tolerate incompetence." "She threw the water on me," Lydia lied, her voice shrill. "I saw her. She was jealous of my dress and she just threw it." No, I swear," Elodie pleaded, tears blurring her vision. "She hit my arm. It was an accident. Please, Mr. Henderson, I need this job. I can't lose this job." "You think I care what you need?" Henderson sneered. He looked around the room, performing for the wealthy patrons, showing them he was in control. "You are fired, Torres. Get out, now, and don't expect your last paycheck. That will go toward the cleaning bill for Miss Banks's dress." "Please," Elodie whispered, the word cracking in her throat. "My brother. I need the money for his medicine." "Not my problem. Get your trash and get out." Henderson shoved her toward the kitchen doors. Elodie stumbled, catching herself on the back of a chair. The humiliation burned hotter than fire. She could feel the eyes of 50 people boring into her, judging her, mocking her. She felt small. She felt invisible. She straightened up, wiping her eyes with the back of her hand. Her uniform was wet, her knees were bruised, and her life was falling apart. As she turned to walk toward the exit, ignoring the kitchen doors, she unbuttoned the top button of her stifling uniform collar to breathe. As she did, a small silver chain slipped out from beneath her shirt. It wasn't expensive jewelry. It was a heavy, tarnished silver locket shaped like a twisting vine wrapping around a dull, dark blue stone. It looked ancient, rough, and completely out of place in the gleaming restaurant. It swung back and forth like a pendulum as she walked toward the front door. She passed table 1, the most secluded table in the house. Sitting there was a man who hadn't looked up during the entire commotion. Sebastian Drake. At 32, he was the youngest telecommunications mogul in the Western Hemisphere. He was known as the Ice King because of his cold demeanor and his refusal to do press interviews. He was handsome in a sharp, dangerous way, with dark eyes that seemed to analyze everything and feel nothing. He was sipping a scotch, bored, until the movement caught his eye. The glint of silver. Elodie walked past him, the locket swinging rhythmically. Sebastian's eyes locked onto the pendant, the twisting vine, the specific, peculiar cut of the dark sapphire. He froze. The glass of scotch in his hand slipped. Smash. The sound of Sebastian Drake dropping his glass was somehow louder than the pitcher breaking earlier. Mr. Henderson, who was still apologizing to Lydia, froze. The entire staff froze. Sebastian Drake never made mistakes. He never dropped things. Sebastian stood up. His chair scraped violently against the floor, a harsh sound that made several diners flinch. He didn't look at the mess he'd made. He didn't look at his bodyguard, a massive man named Holt, who had instantly stepped forward. Sebastian was staring at Elodie's back. "Stop," Sebastian said. His voice wasn't loud, but it carried a command that stopped the air in the room. Elodie froze near the door, her hand on the brass handle. She didn't turn around, thinking he was talking to someone else. She just wanted to leave. She pushed the door open. "I said stop!" Sebastian roared, the veneer of the calm businessman shattering completely. He vaulted over the spilled glass of his own table, moving with a predatory speed that shocked everyone. He reached Elodie just as she stepped out into the rain. He grabbed her arm. Not aggressively, but with a grip like iron. Elodie spun around, terrified. "I'm leaving! I'm going! Please don't call the police!" Sebastian ignored her plea. He was breathing hard, his eyes wide, searching her face. He looked down at her neck. The locket was wet with rain now, the silver shining dully against her pale skin. He reached out, his fingers trembling, and touched the metal. "Where did you get this?" he whispered, his voice hoarse. Elodie pulled back, clutching the locket in her fist. "Let me go. It's mine." Mr. Henderson came running out, an umbrella in hand to shield Sebastian, ignoring Elodie. "Mr. Drake, sir, is this girl bothering you? I'll have security throw her in the gutter where she belongs." Sebastian turned his head slowly to look at Henderson. The look in Sebastian's eyes was so terrifyingly cold that Henderson actually took a step back, dropping the umbrella. "If you speak one more word," Sebastian said, his voice dropping to a lethal whisper, "I will buy this building solely to evict you and burn it to the ground." Henderson's mouth opened and closed like a fish. Sebastian turned back to Elodie. The rain was soaking his expensive Italian suit. But he didn't care. He looked at her, really looked at her, for the first time. He saw the same shape of the eyes, the same stubborn set of the jaw. "Who are you?" Sebastian asked, desperation leaking into his tone. "I'm nobody," Elodie stammered, shivering from the cold. "I'm just a waitress." "No." Sebastian shook his head, the rain dripping from his dark hair. "You aren't just a waitress. That pendant, there is only one in the world, and it belonged to a woman who died 19 years ago." He stepped closer, shielding her from the wind with his body. "Tell me your name." "Elodie," she whispered. "Elodie Torres." Sebastian closed his eyes for a second, as if in pain. When he opened them, the ice was gone, replaced by a storm. "Halt!" Sebastian barked, without looking away from Elodie. The massive bodyguard appeared instantly at his side with a black umbrella. "Sir?" "Bring the car around. Now." "Sir, we have the meeting with the Japanese delegation in 20 minutes, Holt reminded him efficiently. "Cancel it," Sebastian said. "Cancel everything. You can't just—" Elodie started to protest, backing away. "You lost your job tonight, Elodie," Sebastian said, his gaze intense. "But if you come with me, I promise you, you will never have to worry about money again. But I need to know the truth about that necklace." Elodie looked at the man. She saw the raw intensity in his face. She thought of her empty bank account. She thought of Leo's coughing fits in the middle of the night. She looked at the warm, sleek black limousine pulling up to the curb. She had nothing left to lose. "Okay," she whispered. The interior of the limousine was quieter than a tomb. The world outside was muffled by bulletproof glass and heavy soundproofing. Elodie sat on the edge of the plush leather seat, dripping wet, clutching her cheap purse to her chest. She felt like a stray dog that had been allowed onto a velvet sofa. Sebastian sat opposite her. He had poured himself a drink from the car's crystal decanter, but hadn't taken a sip. He was just watching her. His intensity was unnerving. "Here," he said, tossing a thick, dry towel at Torres, the space between them. "Dry off, you're shivering." "Thank you," Elodie mumbled. She patted her face and hair, careful not to let the towel touch the muddy hem of her skirt. "The pendant," Sebastian said. He didn't waste time on small talk. "Let me see it properly." Elodie hesitated. Her hand went to her throat. This necklace was the only thing she had of her mother. It was her talisman. "Why do you care? It's just old costume jewelry." "It's not costume jewelry," Sebastian said sharply. "It's solid platinum, disguised to look like silver. The stone is a cashmere sapphire, unheated. It's worth about $3 million. Elodie's jaw dropped. She looked down at the dull, heavy thing she had worn every day since she was 10. That's impossible. My mum, she was a cleaner. We lived in a trailer in Ohio." "May I?" Sebastian held out a hand, palm up. He didn't demand it this time. He asked. Slowly, Elodie unclasped the chain. She placed the heavy metal into his palm. Sebastian held it like it was a holy relic. He turned it over. On the back, scratched almost invisibly into the metal, was a tiny symbol, a hawk gripping a rose. "The hawk and the rose," Sebastian murmured. "My father's crest, and her favorite flower." He looked up at Elodie, his dark eyes searching hers. Elodie Torres. Was your mother's name Sarah? Elodie felt a chill that had nothing to do with the air conditioning. Yes. Sarah Torres. She died when I was 10. Cancer. Sebastian nodded slowly. A muscle in his jaw twitched. Sarah Torres didn't exist before 20 years ago, Elodie. Your mother changed her name. Her real name was Vivienne Sinclair. Elodie laughed nervously. You've got the wrong person. My mum was... She was terrified of everything. She worked under the table. She never had a bank account. She said her family was dead. Her family wasn't dead, Sebastian said, his voice low and dangerous. They were hunting her. He pressed a button on the console next to him. A holographic screen flickered to life, projecting a digital image into the air between them. It was a newspaper clipping from 20 years ago. Heiress vanishes. Vivienne Sinclair presumed dead in boating accident. Next to the headline was a photo. A beautiful woman in a gala dress, smiling at the camera. Around her neck was the pendant. The exact same pendant. Elodie gasped. She leaned forward, tracing the image of the woman's face. The eyes. They were her eyes. The smile was the smile she remembered singing lullabies to her. That's Mom, she whispered, tears springing to her eyes. That's her. Vivienne Sinclair was the fiancée of my business partner and mentor, Arthur Pendergast, Sebastian explained. Or at least she was supposed to be. But the night before the wedding, she disappeared. She took something with her. Something Arthur has been looking for ever since. The necklace? No, Sebastian said. The necklace is a key. It opens a vault in Zurich. A vault that contains evidence of illegal arms dealing, corporate espionage, and murder. Elodie slumped back against the seat. This is crazy. I'm a waitress. I worry about tips and rent. I don't know anything about arms dealers. You are the daughter of the woman who stole the evidence that could bring down the most powerful corrupt syndicate in New York, Sebastian said. Arthur Pendergast is now a senator. He thinks Vivienne died in that boat crash. If he finds out she survived long enough to have a daughter, and that the daughter has the key, he'll come for me, Elodie finished, the blood draining from her face. He's already here, Sebastian said grimly. Suddenly, the car swerved violently. Elodie screamed as she was thrown against the door. The sound of screeching tires tore through the quiet luxury of the cabin. "Halt!" Sebastian yelled into the intercom. "Status! Black SUV, unmarked. They just rammed our bumper." Holt's voice came through, calm but urgent. "2 more closing in from the flank. We're being boxed in, sir." Sebastian looked at Elodie. There was no fear in his eyes, only a terrifying resolve. He handed the necklace back to her. "Put it on," he commanded. "Tuck it in. Do not let anyone see it." "Who are they?" Elodie cried, fumbling with the clasp as the car swerved again, metal grinding against metal. "Pendergast's cleaners," Sebastian said. He reached under his seat and pulled out a heavy, matte black handgun. He checked the chamber with a practiced click. Someone at the restaurant must have recognized the pendant. Maybe even Henderson called it in for a reward. The limousine rocked as something slammed into the side. The window next to Elodie spiderwebbed with cracks but didn't shatter. "Get down on the floor!" Sebastian shouted. Elodie scrambled off the seat, curling into a ball on the floor mats. "I don't want to die. I have to take care of Leo." "You're not going to die," Sebastian said. He pressed a button, and the partition between them and the driver dropped. "Holt, execute Protocol 0. "Sir, that's risky in the city," Holt shouted over the roar of the engine. "Do it!" The limousine suddenly accelerated with the force of a rocket. Holt spun the wheel. The heavy car drifted sideways, slamming the tail end into the pursuing SUV, sending the attacker spinning into a parked car. We need to get off the grid, Sebastian said, looking down at Elodie. Elodie, listen to me. Your life as a waitress is over. You can't go back to your apartment. You can't go back to the restaurant. But my brother, Elodie sobbed. He's at home. He's alone. Sebastian's face hardened. Where do you live? The tenements on 4th and Vine, apartment 3B. Sebastian tapped his earpiece. Team Bravo, this is Drake. Secure a target. 4th and Vine, apartment 3B. Male, juvenile, name? He looked at Elodie. Leo, she choked out. Leo Torres. He's 14. Leo Torres, Sebastian repeated into the comms. Secure him. Hostile extraction, likely. Get him to the safe house. Go. He looked back at Elodie. My team is the best in the world. They will get him. But right now, we have to survive the next 5 minutes. A gunshot rang out. The bullet embedded itself in the reinforced glass, right next to Sebastian's head. He didn't flinch. Welcome to my world, Elodie, Sebastian muttered. The car roared through a red light, diving into the underpass, the shadows swallowing them whole. The chase was on. The limousine tore through the tunnel, the concrete pillars flashing by like strobe lights. Elodie was pressed against the floor, her heart hammering against her ribs like a trapped bird. Above her, Sebastian was calm, tapping furiously on a tablet that had deployed from the armrest. Holt, how far out is the decoy? Sebastian asked, his voice steady despite the chaos. 30 seconds, sir. Intersection of 5th and Grand, Holt replied, swerving the heavy vehicle around a slow-moving truck. Do it, Sebastian commanded. The limousine screeched to a halt in a dark maintenance bay midway through the tunnel. Before Elodie could ask what was happening, the door flew open. Out! Move! Now! Sebastian grabbed her hand. They scrambled out of the car into the damp, exhaust-filled air of the tunnel. Almost instantly, an identical black limousine roared out from the shadows of the maintenance bay, peeling out into the main lane to take their place. The pursuing SUVs, seeing the taillights, roared past them, chasing the empty car. Come on, Sebastian urged, pulling her toward a nondescript grey sedan parked in the corner of the bay. That decoy will buy us 20 minutes before they realize it's empty. Elodie stumbled into the passenger seat of the sedan. Sebastian took the wheel himself, peeling away in the opposite direction, taking a service ramp that led to the lower levels of the city. For an hour, they drove in silence. Elodie watched the city fade into the rearview mirror, replaced by the dark, looming shapes of the forest on the outskirts of Chicago. Where are we going? She asked finally, her voice trembling. My private estate, Sebastian said. It's off the grid. No cameras, no satellite tracking. It's the only place Pendergast can't see. And Leo? My team secured him. He's already there. Elodie let out a breath she felt like she'd been holding for 10 years. Why are you helping me? You don't even know me. You're a billionaire and I'm nobody. Sebastian gripped the steering wheel tighter. I told you, you're not nobody, and I'm not doing this for charity. I'm doing this for revenge. They arrived at the estate just as dawn was breaking. It wasn't a house. It was a fortress of glass and steel cantilevered over a rushing river. Massive iron gates swung open automatically as the sedan approached. As soon as the car stopped, Elodie scrambled out. Leo! The front door opened, and a team of medical staff in scrubs wheeled a gurney into the hallway. Sitting on it, looking bewildered and holding a portable oxygen tank, was Leo. Elodie! Leo cried out, his voice wheezy but strong. Elodie ran to him, wrapping her arms around his frail shoulders, burying her face in his neck. Oh my God, you're okay. You're okay. These guys, they kicked down the door, El, Leo said, eyes wide. They said they were with you. They brought me here in a helicopter. Sebastian walked up behind them. He nodded to the lead doctor. Status? His lungs are operating at 60% capacity, the doctor reported efficiently. Cystic fibrosis complications. He needs a rigorous course of gene therapy and a clean environment. The mold in your previous apartment was slowly killing him. Elodie stiffened. She knew that. Every day she knew that, and every day she couldn't afford to move. Start the treatment, Sebastian ordered. Whatever he needs, cost is irrelevant. Wait, Elodie turned to Sebastian. I can't pay you back. I have $40 in my bank account. Sebastian looked at her, his expression softening for the first time. I didn't ask for payment. Take him to the guest wing. Get him settled. As the doctors wheeled Leo away, Elodie stood alone in the massive marble foyer with the man who had just upended her life. She felt small, dirty, and exhausted in her stained waitress uniform. Come with me, Sebastian said quietly. He led her to a massive library with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the forest. He went to a wall safe hidden behind a painting, spun the dial, and pulled out a thick, leather-bound journal. 19 years ago, Sebastian began, placing the journal on a mahogany desk. My father was the CEO of Drake Industries. Arthur Pendergast was his VP, and your mother, Vivian, was the company's head legal counsel. Elodie walked over, touching the leather cover. She never told me. She found out that Pendergast was laundering money for a cartel, Sebastian explained. She gathered the evidence. She was going to go to the FBI, but the night before she was supposed to testify. She vanished. The boat accident. Everyone thought she drowned. But she ran, Elodie whispered. She ran to protect the evidence, Sebastian said, and to protect the child she was carrying. Elodie looked up sharply. Me? Yes. Pendergast knew she was pregnant. If he couldn't find her, he would have looked for the child. That's why she lived in poverty. That's why she never used her name. She suffered to keep you off the grid. Sebastian walked around the desk and stood in front of her. The proximity was overwhelming. He smelled of rain, expensive scotch, and danger. That pendant, he pointed to her neck. My father gave it to her. It was a prototype. Inside that stone is a micro-engraving mechanism. It's a key. It opens the physical vault where she hid the hard copies of the evidence. So we just need to find the vault? We know where the vault is, Sebastian said darkly. It's in the basement of the old Drake Industries headquarters. Okay, so let's go get it. We can't, Sebastian shook his head. Because Pendergast bought that building 10 years ago. It's his personal fortress now. To get that evidence, we have to break into the most secure building in Chicago. Elodie touched the cold metal of the locket. And you need me. I can't open it without the key, Sebastian admitted. And I can't take the key from you, because the biometric scanner at the vault requires a DNA match to Vivian. You are the only person on Earth who can walk into that vault. Elodie looked out the window at the rising sun. Yesterday, her biggest problem was a spilled pitcher of water. Today, she was the key to taking down a criminal empire. I'll do it, she said, on one condition. Sebastian raised an eyebrow. Name it. You protect Leo. No matter what happens to me, even if I get caught, even if I die, you make sure he grows up safe and healthy. Sebastian reached out, his hand brushing her cheek. His thumb traced her jawline, sending a jolt of electricity through her. I promise, he vowed. I will protect both of you with my life. The next morning, Elodie woke up in a bed that was larger than her entire apartment. The sheets were silk, the pillows like clouds. For a second, she forgot. She reached for her alarm clock to get ready for her shift at l'Orangerie. Then she saw the marble fireplace. She saw the designer clothes laid out on the chaise lounge. Memory rushed back. The crash, the firing, the limo, the gunshots. She got out of bed and walked to the clothes. There was a note on creamy cardstock. Wear these. We have work to do. As she showered, washing away the smell of the restaurant and the fear of the night before. She dressed in the clothes he had provided, a pair of tailored black trousers and a cashmere sweater that fit her perfectly. She looked in the mirror. She didn't look like a waitress anymore. She looked powerful. She found Sebastian in the kitchen. He was cooking. It was a surreal sight. The billionaire in a black t-shirt, flipping omelettes. "Eat," he said, sliding a plate toward her as she sat at the island. "You need strength." "I didn't know billionaires cooked," Elodie said, taking a fork. "I like control," Sebastian said simply. "I don't like relying on chefs." He picked up a remote and turned on the wall-mounted TV. "You need to see this." The news was on. A breaking news banner flashed red at the bottom of the screen. "Manhunt underway. Billionaire Sebastian Drake wanted for kidnapping." The screen showed a photo of Elodie, her employee ID photo from the restaurant, where she looked tired and washed out. "Authorities are searching for Elodie Torres, a 24-year-old waitress who was forcibly taken from l'Orangerie last night," the reporter said. "Witnesses say Sebastian Drake, CEO of Drake Industries, assaulted the manager and dragged Ms. Torres into a vehicle. Senator Arthur Pendergast has issued a statement calling for Drake's immediate surrender." The screen cut to Pendergast. He was an older man with silver hair and a trustworthy smile that didn't reach his eyes. "I am deeply concerned for this young woman," Pendergast said into the microphones. "Sebastian has been unstable for years. I fear for her safety. We will not rest until she is found." Elodie dropped her fork. He twisted it. "He made you the villain." "He controls the narrative," Sebastian said calmly, turning off the TV. "He knows I have you. He's trying to flush us out. If we leave this house, the police will arrest me, and his private security will take you." "So we're trapped." "We're besieged," Sebastian corrected. "But we have the advantage. He doesn't know we have the plan." Sebastian spread a large blueprint, a Torres the kitchen island. It was a map of Pendergast's tower. "Tomorrow night," Sebastian said, pointing to the penthouse level. "Pendergast is hosting the governor's ball. It's the charity event of the year. 500 guests. High security, but also chaos. You want to crash a party? We are going to walk right in the front door," Sebastian said. "Pendergast expects me to run. He expects me to hide. He does not expect me to walk into his home in a tuxedo." "But I'm kidnapped," Elodie pointed out. "If I show up, people will ask questions." "Exactly," Sebastian smiled, a sharp, wolfish grin. "If you walk in on my arm, alive and well, his kidnapping story falls apart on live television. He can't touch you in front of the governor and the press. It's our only shield. And then, while the world is watching the drama, we slip away to the private elevator. The vault is in the sub-basement. We have a 10-minute window while the speeches are happening." Elodie looked at the blueprints. It was insane. It was dangerous. "I don't know how to be a socialite," she said. "I pour water and bus tables. I don't know which fork to use. I'll blow your cover." Sebastian walked around the island. He stood behind her, his hands resting on the counter on either side of her, trapping her effectively. He leaned down, his mouth close to her ear. "You are Vivian Sinclair's daughter," he whispered. "It's in your blood. You have more class in your little finger than that entire room of vultures." He turned her chair around so she was facing him. "We have 24 hours to prepare. I will teach you everything you need to know. How to walk, how to talk, how to lie. And if we get caught," Elodie asked, looking into his dark eyes. Pendergast will kill us both, Sebastian said, with brutal honesty. But if we succeed, we take back everything he stole. He held out his hand. Do you trust me, Elodie? Elodie looked at the hand. It was a strong hand, a hand that had pulled her from the rain. I don't have a choice, she said. You always have a choice, Sebastian corrected. You can stay here. I'll go alone. I'll probably die, but you'll be safe. Elodie stood up. She took his hand. No, she said firmly. My mother died for this. I'm not staying behind. Teach me. The next 12 hours were a blur of intensity. Sebastian was a demanding teacher. He transformed the library into a training ground. Shoulders back, he commanded, pacing around her as she practiced walking in 6-inch heels he had found in a closet of vintage couture. You are not apologizing for your existence anymore, Elodie. You are owning the space. When you walk into a room, you assume everyone is there to see you. It feels arrogant, Elodie grumbled, balancing a book on her head. It is arrogant, Sebastian countered. That is the armor of the rich. Wear it. They went over the floor plans until Elodie could draw them with her eyes closed. They rehearsed cover stories. They practiced the tango. Why do we need to dance? Elodie asked, breathless, as Sebastian spun her around the marble floor of the foyer. Because the entrance to the private elevator is behind the orchestra pit in the ballroom, Sebastian said, pulling her close. His hand burned on her waist. We need to dance our way at Torres the room to get there without alerting security. The music from the stereo swelled, a dramatic, violin-heavy piece. Sebastian guided her with effortless strength. Elodie stumbled at first, but she was a quick learner. She began to anticipate his movements. Look at me, Sebastian murmured. Don't look at your feet. Look at my eyes. Elodie looked up. They were inches apart. The air between them crackled with electricity. For a moment, the heist didn't matter. The danger didn't matter. There was just the heat of his hand and the depth of his gaze. You're beautiful, Sebastian said, the words slipping out as if he hadn't meant to say them. Elodie flushed. I'm just a waitress in a borrowed dress. Stop saying that, Sebastian said fiercely. He stopped dancing, but he didn't let go of her. You are the strongest woman I've met in years. Lydia Banks and her kind. They are empty shells. You are fire. He leaned in. Elodie's breath hitched. She found herself leaning in too, her lips parting. He was going to kiss her. She wanted him to kiss her. Beep, beep, beep. The secure phone on the table chirped, shattering the moment. Sebastian pulled back, clearing his throat, his eyes momentarily squeezed shut in frustration. He walked over and answered it. Drake, he answered crisply. He listened for a moment, his face growing pale. Understood. He hung up and turned to Elodie. The softness was gone. The Ice King was back. What is it? Elodie asked. Pendergast moved the timeline, Sebastian said grimly. He's planning to demolish the old headquarters next week to build a casino. If he does that, the vault will be buried under tons of concrete forever. So tonight is really our only chance. Yes, Sebastian walked to a large black box that had been delivered earlier by courier. He opened it. Inside was a dress. It was emerald green silk, backless, with a slit that went up to the thigh. It was dangerous. It was stunning. Get dressed, Elodie, Sebastian said, his voice low. It's showtime. The grand ballroom of the Pendergast Tower was a sea of diamonds, tuxedos, and fake laughter. Senator Pendergast stood at the center of it all, holding a champagne flute, accepting compliments from the mayor. Such a tragedy about that poor girl, a socialite murmured to Pendergast. Indeed, Pendergast sighed dramatically. "We are doing everything we can." Suddenly, the heavy double doors at the top of the grand staircase swung open. The room went silent. The orchestra faltered and stopped. Standing at the top of the stairs was Sebastian Drake. He looked impeccable in a tuxedo, his face a mask of cool indifference. But no one was looking at him. They were looking at the woman on his arm, Elodie. She descended the stairs like a queen. The emerald dress clung to her curves like liquid water. Her dark hair was swept up, revealing the long line of her neck. And resting there, gleaming under the chandeliers, was the silver vine pendant with the dark blue stone. Pendergast dropped his champagne glass. It shattered on the floor, echoing exactly like the water pitcher had 2 nights ago. "Good evening, Arthur," Sebastian's voice rang out, projecting clearly a Torres the silent room. Pendergast's security detail surged forward, hands reaching for weapons inside their jackets. "I wouldn't do that," Sebastian said calmly, raising a hand. "We are streaming live." He pointed to the corner, where a hired camera crew, Sebastian's men in disguise, had their lenses trained on the couple. "You said I kidnapped Ms. Torres," Sebastian said, leading Elodie down the final steps to stand face to face with the senator. "As you can see, she is here of her own free will, and she has something she wants to say to you." Elodie looked into the eyes of the man who had killed her mother. She felt fear, yes, but she also felt the anger Sebastian had told her to hold on to. "Hello, Senator," she said, her voice steady and clear. "My name is Elodie, but my mother's name was Vivian." A collective gasp went through the older guests in the room. They remembered Vivian. They saw the resemblance instantly. Pendergast's face turned the color of ash. He forced a smile, but his eyes were murderous. I don't know what you're talking about." "Dance with me, darling," Sebastian said to Elodie, cutting off the conversation before Pendergast could recover. He swept her onto the dance floor. The conductor, terrified of the tension, hurriedly started the music again. A waltz. "Keep smiling," Sebastian whispered as they spun. "Everyone is watching. Pendergast can't grab us while the cameras are rolling." "He looks like he wants to eat us alive," Elodie whispered back, her smile fixed and radiant. "He does. We have 3 minutes to get to the orchestra pit." They danced. It was a deadly performance. They spun closer and closer to the stage. Pendergast was whispering furiously to his head of security, a scarred man named Kruger. Kruger nodded and started moving his men toward the exits, sealing the room. "They're locking the doors," Elodie noted, panic rising. "We aren't leaving by the doors," Sebastian said. They reached the edge of the stage. Sebastian spun her one last time, dipping her low. In the dip, hidden by the volume of her skirt and his body, he reached into his pocket and pressed a small device against the electronic lock of the service door behind the curtain. Click. He pulled her upright. "Now." They slipped behind the heavy velvet curtains of the stage just as the song ended. "They went backstage," someone shouted. "Go!" Sebastian grabbed her hand. They sprinted down the narrow service corridor, kicking off their shoes to run faster. Behind them, they heard the heavy boots of security guards crashing through the stage equipment. They reached the freight elevator. Sebastian swiped a cloned keycard. The doors groaned open. Come on, Elodie urged, pulling him in. The doors were closing just as Kruger rounded the corner, gun drawn. He fired. Ping! A bullet sparked off the closing metal doors. They were moving down, going deep into the belly of the beast. "Are you okay?" Sebastian checked her, his hands running over her arms. "I'm fine," Elodie panted. "That was exhilarating." Sebastian laughed, a short, breathless sound. "You were perfect." The elevator dinged. Sub-basement 3. The doors opened into a cold, concrete corridor. At the end of it stood a massive circular steel vault door. "This is it," Sebastian said. "The vault." They ran to it. There was no keypad, only a small, intricate indentation in the center of the steel, shaped like a twisting vine. "The pendant," Sebastian said. Elodie unclasped the necklace. Her hands were shaking. She pressed the silver metal into the groove. It fit perfectly. A heavy mechanical thunk echoed through the floor. Then the sound of gears grinding, gears that hadn't moved in 20 years. The massive wheel of the door began to spin. "We did it," Elodie whispered. "Not yet," Sebastian said, turning around and aiming his gun at the elevator. "Now we have to get the evidence and get out." The vault door swung open, but inside it wasn't stacks of paper or hard drives. Sitting on a single pedestal in the center of the empty room was a laptop, and sitting on top of the laptop was a bomb. The timer was counting down. 00:59, 00:58. "It's a trap," Sebastian realized, horror washing over his face. He knew. He emptied it years ago. The elevator behind them dinged again. "Leaving so soon?" Pendergast's voice echoed down the hall. He stepped out, flanked by Kruger and 4 other armed guards. Pendergast was holding a detonator. "Did you really think I'd leave the evidence that could ruin me sitting in a basement?" Pendergast sneered. "Vivian was smart, but you two, you're just predictable." Elodie looked at the bomb, then at Pendergast. They were cornered. No exit, no evidence, and 1 minute left to live. The timer on the bomb blinked red. 0:45. 0:44. The air in the sub-basement was cold, but Elodie felt sweat trickling down her spine. She stood next to the pedestal, her hand hovering over the laptop, while Sebastian stood in front of her, his body a shield against the barrels of 5 guns. Pendergast smiled, a cruel twisting of lips that had charmed voters for decades. "You look just like her, you know," he said to Elodie, ignoring the countdown. "Vivian. She always thought she was smarter than me, too. She thought she could hide the truth in a silver locket." "She did hide it," Elodie said, her voice shaking but defiant. "And we found it." "You found a grave," Pendergast corrected. "I emptied this vault 10 years ago. I burned the physical files. I drilled the hard drives. That laptop? It's just a little parting gift I rigged up for anyone foolish enough to use the key." 00:30. Sebastian's eyes were darting around the room. He was analyzing angles, counting rounds, calculating odds. The odds were 0. They were trapped in a concrete box with a bomb and a firing squad. But then, Sebastian noticed something. The large steel vault door behind Pendergast, the one they had just opened, had a control panel on the inside wall, and next to the panel, a small, dusty light was flickering green. Sebastian looked back at the pendant in the slot. The blue stone wasn't just sitting there. It was pulsing. A rhythmic, soft light. The key didn't just open the door, Sebastian realized. It completed a circuit. "You're right, Arthur," Sebastian said loudly, his voice echoing off the concrete walls. He took a step forward, hands raised in surrender. "You won. The vault is empty. There's no evidence." "Sebastian, what are you doing?" Elodie hissed. "Stay quiet," Sebastian snapped at her, playing the part of the defeated man. He looked at Pendergast. "Let the girl go. She's a nobody. You want me. I'm the threat. Let her take the elevator up. I'll stay here with the bomb." Pendergast laughed, a dry, barking sound. "Noble to the end, just like your father. And look where it got him." He raised the detonator in his left hand. "I don't think I'll wait for the timer. I think I'll just end this now." "Wait!" Sebastian shouted. "Before you kill us, tell me one thing. Did you look inside the locket?" Pendergast paused, his thumb hovering over the button. "What?" "The locket," Sebastian said, inching closer. You said you destroyed the files, but Vivian was the best coder Drake Industries ever had. Did you really think she used paper? Sebastian pointed to the wall behind Pendergast. She didn't store the data in the vault, Arthur. She stored it in the building's mainframe. The vault was just the upload port. And when Elodie turned that key, she didn't just open a door. She initiated a system-wide broadcast. Pendergast's eyes widened. He glanced involuntarily at the security camera mounted in the corner of the hallway. The red light on the camera was solid, recording. "What did you do?" Pendergast whispered, fear finally cracking his composure. "We're not just in the basement," Sebastian smiled, a cold, predatory smile. "We're on every screen in the tower, the ballroom, the lobby, the elevators, and the live stream to the news networks." Pendergast spun around to look at Kruger. "Check the feed, now!" Kruger pulled out his phone. His face went white. "Sir, it's everywhere. The audio, the files. They're scrolling a Torres the Jumbotron in the ballroom. The governor is watching. The press is watching." On the phone screen, a video file from 20 years ago was playing. A grainy video of Pendergast shaking hands with a cartel leader, handing over a briefcase of cash, and ordering the removal of Vivian Sinclair. The bomb timer beeped. 0 to 10. "Turn it off!" Pendergast screamed, smashing the detonator button. Nothing happened. "The detonator is wireless," Sebastian explained calmly. "But the upload jammed all local frequencies. You can't blow us up, Arthur, and you can't run." Pendergast let out a primal scream of rage. He dropped the detonator and snatched the gun from his waistband. "If I can't blow you up, I'll kill you myself." He raised the gun, aiming directly at Elodie's heart. "No!" Sebastian roared. He didn't think. He didn't calculate. He just moved. Sebastian launched himself at Torres the space, diving in front of Elodie just as the gun went off. Bang! The sound was deafening in the small space. Sebastian's body jerked violently in midair. He crashed into Elodie, knocking her to the ground behind the pedestal. "Sebastian!" Elodie screamed, scrambling to catch him. He was heavy, his weight pinning her legs. Blood was already blossoming on the white shirt of his tuxedo, high on his chest, near the shoulder. "Stay down," he gritted out, his teeth clenched in agony. Pendergast advanced, eyes wild, stepping into the vault. "I built this city. I own this city. You think a video can stop me?" He aimed the gun down at them. Elodie looked around desperately. Her hand brushed against the heavy silver pendant still stuck in the wall slot. She grabbed the chain. She pulled with everything she had. It wouldn't budge. It was locked in. But as she pulled, the heavy steel door of the vault groaned. The mechanism was sensitive to the key's position. Pendergast stepped closer. "Goodbye, Ms. Torres." Elodie slammed her hand against the control panel on the inside wall, the one Sebastian had seen earlier. Wham! The massive 3-ton steel door slammed shut with the speed of a guillotine. Pendergast had been standing in the threshold. He tried to jump back, but he wasn't fast enough. The door clipped his arm, sending his gun skittering at Torres the floor of the vault, and sealed with a bone-jarring thud. They were locked inside. Pendergast was locked outside. Silence fell over the vault. Elodie scrambled toward the gun, kicking it away, then turned back to Sebastian. "Sebastian? Sebastian, look at me." He was pale, his breathing shallow. The blood was spreading fast. "I'm okay," he wheezed, trying to smile. "Just a scratch." "It's not a scratch," Elodie cried, tearing the hem of her emerald dress. She bunched up the silk and pressed it hard against the wound. "You're bleeding too much." Did the door seal?" he asked weakly. "Yes, we're locked in. He can't get us." "Good." Sebastian closed his eyes. Holt will come. The police, they saw the video. Just wait." No, you have to stay awake. Elodie shook him, tears streaming down her face, ruining her makeup. You promised you'd protect Leo. You can't die on me now, you arrogant jerk. You can't. Sebastian's hand moved feebly to cover hers, which was pressing on his chest. His hand was cold. Elodie, he whispered. What? What is it? The water, he murmured. I never paid you for the water. His head lolled to the side. His eyes drifted shut. Sebastian! Elodie screamed, her voice echoing off the cold steel walls. Sebastian! She pressed harder on the wound, sobbing, rocking back and forth. She was trapped in a box deep underground with the man she was falling in love with, and he was dying in her arms. Outside, faintly, through the thick steel, she heard sirens. A lot of sirens. But she didn't know if they would be fast enough. 3 days later, the steady beep-beep of a heart monitor was the only sound in the private suite at Chicago Memorial. Elodie hadn't moved from the plastic chair in 72 hours, her hand clutching Sebastian's cold fingers. The door creaked open. Holt stepped in, his usual stoicism softened by a bandage over one eye. He held up a tablet. It's over, Ms. Torres. On the screen, a headline screamed, Senator Pendergast, charged with treason. The accompanying video showed the once untouchable senator being shoved into a police van, jeered by a furious crowd. The upload worked, Holt explained quietly. 20 years of hit lists, money laundering and corruption, broadcast to the world. He's gone for good. Henderson and Lydia are facing federal charges as accomplices. You won. Elodie? A raspy voice whispered from the bed. Elodie dropped the tablet and scrambled up. Sebastian's dark eyes were open, groggy but focused on her face. You're awake, she choked out, tears spilling over. You idiot, you took a bullet. Just a scratch, he wheezed, a faint smirk tugging at his lips. I had to make it dramatic, good for the ratings. You promised to protect Leo, she scolded gently, brushing the hair from his forehead. You can't break a promise to a billionaire's brother. Sebastian's expression sobered instantly. Is he okay? He's downstairs in the pediatric wing. The doctors say he's already responding to the new treatment. He's gained 2 pounds and wants to meet the ninja who saved us. Sebastian squeezed her hand weakly. His gaze dropped to the cheap silver locket resting against her collarbone. That belongs in a museum. It stays with me, Elodie said firmly. It reminds me who I am. And who are you, Elodie Torres? I'm the girl who took down a senator. I have a better title, Sebastian murmured. Director of the Drake Foundation. Elodie blinked. I'm a waitress, Sebastian. I pour water. You are the woman who outsmarted a monster in a silk dress, he countered, his voice gaining strength. I'm stepping down as CEO to heal. The Foundation needs someone who understands the fight. Plus, his thumb brushed her knuckles, it comes with a significant raise. Leo will need college tuition. Why? She asked, her voice trembling. Because, he whispered, his gaze intense. In that vault, bleeding out. I wasn't afraid of dying. I was afraid of never seeing you again. Elodie leaned down. There were no sirens, no gunfire, just the quiet hum of the machines and the beat of 2 hearts. She pressed her lips to his in a soft, lingering promise of a future finally free of fear. 6 months later, the grand reopening of the Celestial, formerly L'Orangerie, was the event of the season. But the fear that once permeated the room was gone, replaced by warmth, laughter, and jazz. Elodie stood on the balcony, the Chicago wind playing with the hem of her midnight blue gown. Sebastian stepped up beside her, looking healthy and vibrant, the darkness finally gone from his eyes. Nervous? He asked, wrapping an arm around her waist. A little, she admitted, looking out at the skyline. It's a big crowd. Hey, Elle! A shout interrupted them. Leo burst onto the balcony, holding a plate piled high with shrimp. He wasn't wheezing. He was glowing with health, taller and full of boundless energy. "This food is awesome. Can we take leftovers?" "Eat as much as you want, kid." Sebastian laughed, ruffling Leo's hair. "I own the place." As Leo ran off to raid the dessert table, Sebastian pulled Elodie closer. "Happy?" Elodie looked at her healthy brother, then up at the man who had changed her world. She touched the silver locket at her throat, now polished and gleaming. "Yeah," she whispered, leaning into his embrace. "I really am." They stood together watching the city lights, no longer outsiders looking in, but the ones shining the brightest. And that is the incredible story of Elodie Torres. It reminds us that no matter how hard life gets, or how invisible you feel, you possess a strength that can change the world. Elodie didn't just save herself, she saved her brother, healed Sebastian, and brought justice to her mother's memory. Sometimes, our greatest struggles are actually the keys to our greatest victories. Never let anyone tell you that you are just anything. You are powerful. Wow, what a roller coaster. If Elodie's bravery inspired you, please hit that like button right now. It really helps the channel. And if you want to see more stories about underdogs taking down the bad guys and finding true love, make sure to subscribe and turn on the notification bell. What would you do if you found out your old necklace was a key to a $1 billion secret? Let me know in the comments below. Thanks for watching.